Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having
Yeah.
me.
John can introduce himself. And
Yeah,
what he's doing.
Yeah, so I'm John Tumino. I'm the executive director of In My Father's Kitchen, which is a street outreach to the chronically homeless of Central New York.
Okay. So what are some of the initiatives that your organization takes or
Yeah, so my approach is direct street outreach to those who feel invisible, those who are suffering, those that we see standing on corners with cardboard signs. So my initial mission is to bring out food. As a chef, I bring out quality meals to individuals, and then is bringing out material goods that they might need, whether it's clothing or toiletries. And now we bring out medicine, and it's meeting them where they're at, letting them know that they're not invisible, that there's a person in front of them that cares about them. And when they are ready to make a decision to change, that we're going to be standing there waiting for them. It's about building a relationship with people.
Nice. Okay.
How long?
Yeah.
I know you. So your path to get here, if you can explain your path to get here.
Yeah, so I was a restaurateur. I ran a family restaurant. I was
Asti Cafe, great Italian restaurant in
Yep.
Syracuse.
Started in 2002. I left in 2011 to do this work because I had an encounter with an individual on an off-ramp that kind of changed my perspective on life. I'm also a minister, so there's a faith part of my life as well. So those two things kind of collided. And I had an encounter with a guy, and I ended up feeding him, telling me he wasn't invisible, and my life changed. And I remember going home and telling my wife, I know what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to find these individuals and engage them and feed them. And then that's how it started in
And it
2011.
was just random. You just decided. Was it one of those things where you saw somebody and for whatever reason decided that day to pull over? Or
I don't know how much time we have, but this is an awesome story. So for me, in 2009, I was running a restaurant, I was prepping for the day. And that was when I did my prayer time as a minister and kind of just a person of faith. And I felt these words just drop in my heart in my father's kitchen. It kind of just like an idea came to me, and I was like, oh man, that just resonated with me. And then I felt there would be a place that Leanne and I would have where we would use food to fill someone's belly, but then the spiritual part of our life that would enter someone's heart and their lives could be changed. And then I felt the calling come to me as a minister. You always hear ministers say, or a priest say, hey, I heard the call. And for me, it was time to leave the restaurant and follow God in this adventure. And that blew me away. I'm making money. I'm running a restaurant. It's 2009. Asti had these 4 major expansions, and we're doing well. And I go home and talk to my wife about that, and we just sat on it and kind of prayed about it for 6 months. I didn't say anything. It was just for me letting God reveal it if that was what I needed to do, because it was a major decision in my life. You know, 6 months into that journey, we felt like, yes, this is it. We tell my family, who are my partners, my parents are involved in the business, and it shocked them. It took them by surprise. I remember my mom asking me, well, what are you guys going to do? And we thought we were going to go to Central America, to Costa Rica, to do this work and then to use food as this thing and do teaching and stuff like that with that. And then after a year, we told our staff, and then 18 months later, I'm walking out the door. And in the meantime, we've done 4 trips to Costa Rica. And we were kicking the tires, looking under the hood, trying to find the spot where we were going to do it. And we thought we found it. And then on my 4th trip back, I just felt like red light. It's not where I'm supposed to do. But now I just walked away from the restaurant world. I already stepped out. And I felt like I was out on a limb. And that's when I have this encounter with this guy. I'm getting off the off-ramp by the mall at Bear Street. And there's a gentleman holding a cardboard sign, and I just felt I needed to feed him. He felt like he wasn't invisible, and I go to Wegmans at the time and get some stuff and bring it back to him, and he's still standing there. My heart's pounding in my chest, and my hands are all sweaty, and I just don't do a drive-by. I park my car, and I walk over, and I talk with him, introduce myself, told him I had a lunch, and he said, I'm hungry. My name is Tim. And I said, you're not invisible. Gave him the lunch. And then he starts to unpack his life story in 20 minutes. He starts crying.
Right.
oh my gosh, I'm tearing up now.
Well,
Hearing the story.
And
It's
I'm on an
emotional.
off-ramp. Like, I forgot, you know, when you're in the middle of a conversation and it gets deep, you forget where you are sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm standing on this corner, and next thing you know, I realize I'm on an off-ramp.
Yeah.
I come to myself after we get done talking, and that's when I go home and tell Leanne, I think I know what we're supposed to do. And that's how it started in 2011.
So,
Wow.
yeah, that's crazy. So do you feel like kind of, I guess when you live in Central New York your whole life, there is an aspect that you kind of, I don't want to say like ignore, like have an ignorance to it, but it's just, every day it's kind of where if you think Costa Rica and that's where the need is, and you forget that there's need right here.
Yeah.
So do you think once you had that encounter, you move forward, like your eyes were almost open and were like, oh my gosh, there's so much need here. There's so much we can do.
Yeah. That's a great way of thinking of it, because it's true. Because I think for me personally, I felt like I was being tested, like, will you follow me down to Central America? And I said, yes, 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 yes. And then finally said, okay, no, that's not it. I think if I would have seen that homeless person before that other stuff, I might have not have said yes.
Okay.
It kind of set me up to be ready for that because I could be trusted, right? So like here, when you run a restaurant, when I was running a restaurant, you have management, you have to trust people to handle certain things, right? Because if you're not here, hopefully no one's stealing your money, right? So with me, I felt the same way spiritually. I felt that I could be trusted to follow. And when I said yes, then it changed my life radically
But you made a good point. You said, I saw the guy, and I like your thing about you're not invisible. I see a lot of the posts and stuff that you put out there, and you're not invisible is a big message you put out there, and they are. I mean, I don't know if I drove by anybody today in my drive today. I probably put 60 miles in my car. Do I know if I drove it by anybody having a sign? To be honest, I don't know.
Right.
Because sometimes they're just, you're at the light, you're dazed and thinking about your next move or what you got to be or where you got to be, and you just drive by them.
Right. So I think it's become normal to see people panhandling now. So all of a sudden we're kind of desensitized to it, right?
Yeah.
So then it becomes part of your drive every day. Well, that's just the guy I see there, and you just kind of go right by him. And to me, I always say that's like somebody's family. You know what I mean? Somebody's parent or brother or sibling or uncle.
There's a song about that the country singer does is that, that was somebody's first kiss. That was somebody's first boyfriend. That was somebody's daughter. Somebody's daughter is the name of the song. And it really hits you to think that, you see that person and you go, oh my gosh, at some point, that was somebody's first love, somebody's first whatever.
Yeah, well, going back to Michelle's point about recognizing the need in our own community, right? So with me, making those folks visible to the community is one of my other missions, I believe, other than doing the direct service and helping people. My other mission, I believe, is to bring awareness, right? So when you guys asked me to come and talk on the podcast, I'm like, I'm all in. I'll talk to 2 Girl Scouts if I had to, if I could teach someone or give understanding about the problem that we have in Central New York with homelessness. It's you're dealing with folks that are broken and they have a lot of childhood trauma, addiction, mental health, untreated, and then they end up becoming homeless, wandering, addicted, and panhandle. Well, Joe Schmo driving through the community just could stigmatize someone by a visual appearance, but I get to find out the story behind the cardboard sign.
Do you still find yourself in the beginning? So you meet Tim, he's your first save or whatever you want, whatever your terminology you use to describe that. How did you get to one? Do you still go out into the community? If you're driving down the road and you see somebody, do you stop? Do you still pull over on the off ramp and talk to them?
More than likely, I know most of them. I've been doing it for 11 years. So it's more like I roll the window down during my regular days and say, hey, Joe, how are you? Or Susie. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we do, the van goes out with the meals and we have a medical team that goes out with us. And now what started out of my house, so how it started was I'm like, okay, well, now I feel I know what I'm supposed to do. Well, what are you supposed to do? I just felt like use what I had in my hands, which was my talent as a chef. I knew how to cook. Right. I had a kitchen in my house and I had a car. So we started hitting the road. And now it's
grassroots.
Well, yeah. Now it's evolved to, we have 6 staffers. We have an outreach vehicle, a medical team. I still get to cook and scratch that itch of that brings kind of peace to my mind when I'm cooking on a saute pan, or I'm just, that's
and you're bringing people in and teaching them that trade, right?
Well, not necessarily. No. So when it's just me and my time, I'm not feeding hundreds of people. I'm doing like dozens. So when I go out on Tuesdays, I'm making about 20 lunches, and on Thursdays I do the same thing. But for me, I prepare the menu the night before. I go shopping that morning. Then I get
and it's not bologna sandwiches. No. It's real food.
The stuff I used to sell in the restaurant. I made filet mignon baked potatoes. I've done lasagna. I'm doing stuffed peppers. I'm bringing value and dignity through food. The power of food. Yeah. So with me, this place on Fridays and Saturdays is probably busy. Food, everyone congregates around a table. You have conversation. Families or friends are meeting around your food that you're making here. And I do the same thing. The concept is, I'm using the food as that vehicle to make first contact.
Right.
And if I bring out this ratcheted up lunch, like, hey, I want homemade lasagna, who's going to say no
No.
to that if you're under a bridge, right?
Yeah.
So it's that shock and awe in the beginning, but then as they get to know us, the food becomes secondary and it's about the relationship, right? So like you try to build customer service, like hopefully you get to meet your customers, they know you.
Yeah.
Hey, there's the owner.
Yeah.
She's great. Michelle's awesome.
Well,
so
Nora's great. Michelle's okay.
All
Yeah.
right. All right.
So we try to do that same philosophy, bringing out customer service, I call it, that I learned in the restaurant world, but now ratcheting it up to someone who's broken and letting them know that we're there for them. And then here's the thing, I don't know when someone's moment of surrender is. I just want to be able to stand there when they finally say yes because they trust us.
Yeah.
And that only happens over consistency of time, right?
So
How many people do you think you've met or helped in the last 10 years, 9 years?
Well, we've assisted now 289 people that were homeless indoors over the last 11 years. I've served
Wow.
thousands of meals. I mean,
290 people you brought indoors.
Right.
Wow.
Then multiple people to rehab, getting connected to their mental health providers. We lost 56 people have died that I've met since I've been doing this as well. So it's life and death.
yeah.
I see you have a question.
Oh, I was just gonna. I just am so, first of all, in awe of this, and it makes me just wish that we could do more. But is there like a stigma? I feel like there's a whole different lot of stigmas that we can break down. But for the people, the community members that you encounter and have relationships with, is there a stigma of, like you're approaching them with food and then that they kind of, like you said, you build the relationship over time? Like you're just there to drop off food, and as they get to know you, they...
Yeah, so
Like-
kind of an encounter would go like, so now I have street cred. So now my name is out
Okay.
there, like, so they talk amongst themselves in their community. So they know that people.
And there is a community.
Oh my gosh, there's a community. Yeah, there's a community. I always say like they're building out downtown in the middle of two major shelters. I said, you can't forget that those homeless folks in those shelters are part of that community.
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? So you're beautifying an area, but you can't, what are you going to do? Push those people away?
Yeah.
They're part of that. So with us having the street cred is a big deal. But again, it's just getting to know them, and we call them friends. I don't call them clients, and I do that on purpose. It holds me accountable. So if it's my friend, if I'm using that terminology, if your friend calls you in the middle of the night, you're going to answer the phone.
Yeah.
Same thing with me. They all got my number, my staff's number, and if they call us, if we could get there, we'll get there. If not, it's just helping them where they're at. But again, it's just getting to know them where they're at with no judgment. So I always tell them it's no strings.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no strings
Strings.
here. It's I'm coming, I'm going to feed you. You could say no 100 times. That's cool. But I got to get to know you. After 101 times, you'd figure, okay, that they could trust you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they buy in. So they buy in. There's no like agenda.
Okay.
I mean, I do want to help them. And when we engage someone in first contact, it depends on like if I met Bud, he's a talker like me. We could just start talking.
Yeah.
If someone's quiet and I could see that they're reserved, I don't push any envelopes. I'm like, okay, see you later. I'll be out again Thursday.
Yeah.
And then a little more comes out next time.
Nice. I love that. And then as far as stigmas, I guess in the reverse, as like, I'll give one for, is that going out into the community when there is addiction and there is homelessness, it feels like there might be a danger issue. How do you combat that? Because I do feel like that's a stigma. Like
Have you
people
ever been in a
aren't
situation?
Yeah,
inherently dangerous.
Yeah, so I would say this. When you know you're supposed to be doing something, I don't throw caution to the wind. I use wisdom, but then I'm not afraid because I know I'm supposed to be doing it, right?
Right.
But I don't put myself in harm's way.
Okay.
There have been situations where my eyes are seeing something and I'm like, oh my gosh, but my heart's telling me go in anyway, but my brain's like freaking out, right?
Right.
So I follow that love, that compassion.
Yeah.
And something wonderful happens. There's been times where I've seen things with my eyes that look crazy and I wanted to go in with my head, but my heart said, don't go. Like
right.
I follow that inner voice, right?
Yeah.
And I haven't gone. But I'm in all kind, like we're dealing with there's a lot of folks living in abandoned houses. Heroin's a big thing. Like right now there's a house that I'm thinking of where it's pretty much a zombie house, no running water, no electricity, 7 to 8 to 10 people living in there in heroin addiction, craziness. And we go there and we love on those folks. They come out, and I think because I don't treat them with disdain or like
Right.
it doesn't come up. Like when I bring someone new, like a new medical student or someone new that's coming out, I'll say, listen, we're going to see some things with our eyes. You got to have a poker face. You can't be like
Right.
looking like shocked.
Yeah.
Because they read
people
you. They
feel
read
that,
you. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. You gotta, sometimes my head's seeing some things. I'm like, my mind's going, oh my gosh. But in my heart, I'm like, okay, stay
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Stay calm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like here, like, when you're in the weeds in the restaurant world
Yeah.
on a Friday night at the peak hours, all of a sudden you got tickets lined up. You got to stay calm and cool.
Oh,
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't go underwater.
Right. Yeah. Because people feel that and you don't want them
Yeah.
to, just because it's different. I mean, of course it's not
Right.
a good situation, but just because it's different from what you don't want people to feel like they're less
Yeah,
than.
for example, like
Yeah.
for you could go in the kitchen on a busy night and then it's all it's frantic, and you have
Yeah.
to come out here and talk to someone at
Be
a
like,
table. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
How are you?
That's
I'm
the sa-
great. Yeah, yeah.
It's the same thing for us.
Yeah.
So it's using that same kind
But
of
yours
thing.
is in life and death.
Yeah.
Versus it's,
Yeah.
as much as it may seem like life or death on the
Well, it is in the moment. I mean, I remember being in the restaurant world and it was Friday night and it's busy and things are popping good and you're like, yes, but there's days where you're like, what is going on?
Like, we're this close from the
Yeah.
place burning down.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like I get it for her, it's life and death. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
for me, I guess when it comes to someone and their addiction, I think the other stigma too is that people think they could just stop doing
Yeah.
drugs.
It's so crazy that people think that.
Right.
I just can't.
Right.
I cannot comprehend why people think.
Well, and
it's-
especially if some of the folks that we work with have the mental health component too. Sometimes they're not taking their meds, so they're self-medicating with illegal stuff, right?
right.
Which supposedly they think helps them, it's making it worse,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the thing is, when you have an addiction going on and you have chemicals running through your body, it's not like easy just to stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who will listen to this podcast, people might have family members right now.
Everybody knows somebody
Right,
that's
that
got
has mental
addiction.
health
Yeah.
or
Addiction.
addiction going on, and it's that black sheep in the family or whatever. We
Mm-hmm.
all have that person, right? We all wish that they could just stop. It isn't that easy. There's a lot of
Why is it that, and when you talk about stigma, so I had a very close family member who had some very troubled addiction stuff, and it was challenging for us because we were helping, but we weren't helping. The help became when we stopped helping
Yeah.
and put the ultimatum
Yeah.
out there. And it was, for my wife, it wasn't so hard to do, but for me, it was really hard to do. And to have him come out of it at the other end and be very positive about it was great. But why is it that if we were sitting here now and you looked Saturday, there's somebody in the community has leukemia or cancer or got hit by a car and was in a wheelchair, you'd have a benefit for him. You know, these people that have, they're anorexic, bulimic, cancer, leukemia, are all diseases. Addiction is a disease.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just stop. My wife is very fit and works out a lot. She has some friends who are borderline anorexic, bulimic, and you look at him and go, just eat a damn sandwich. But it's not that easy. The same
No.
with, you just can't stop. And it doesn't matter if you were poor, rich, white, black, green,
Doesn't
red.
discriminate.
It doesn't matter. But addiction gets that stigma, and people just think stop. But the cancer guy who's
Right.
got a disease,
Right.
you help.
Yeah,
Why?
well, I think the drugs is a funny thing. I mean, you look what's happening in society now, like marijuana is legal. Where I grew up, it was like taboo.
Yeah.
And now it's like normal, right?
Yeah.
So, I think society's finally catching up to some things, you know what I mean? And especially the stigma part of
Yeah.
things, like especially mental health right now. You're
Yeah,
hearing
yeah.
a lot about that. But all of a sudden, it seems like there's more addiction and there's more mental health.
Yeah.
Why is that happening? I think there's the pressures of life. I think we live in a society where there's just a lot of pressure to perform and to produce and to be someone maybe that you feel like you have to try to be and you're not. But the folks that I work with, I hear time after time after time just upbringing of horrific things, being violated as a child, just trauma. Then next thing you know, they don't graduate school and you don't even have a diploma, and then you introduce drugs. And next thing you know, it graduates once it finally gets to heroin or Molly or something.
It's
that
just
you're-
so much.
Right, stuff. And then there's guilt and shame. So now the person who's addicted, they don't wake up and say, yeah, I want to be a heroin addict.
No.
You know?
Right.
No.
Right.
Or, yeah, I think I'll have schizophrenia today. You don't wake up like that. But what ends up happening is you still know right and wrong. So you know you hurt your family, you maybe hurt your friends, and then there's the shame and the guilt that keeps you in this
Yeah,
cycle.
cycle.
So for us going to them, I always say to them, you know, we get to. I talk about some pretty intense kind of subject matter with our friends, and I could tell when they're first getting to know me, and I'll ask a real tough question, and they'll kind of like hesitate. I'm like, listen, no guilt, no
Yeah.
shame. I'm not here to judge you. And all of a sudden you can feel them like exhale, and then they'll tell me, yeah, when I was 10 years old, I got molested, you know?
Right, yeah.
And sometimes that's how it started for some people. Yeah. Other times it's like people were hanging out the wrong crowd in high school and they get introduced to something, and all of a sudden, like the guy who works for me, Kevin, is my van driver. I met him 11 years ago. He was hooked on crack cocaine, homeless, and now he works for me, right?
Wow.
So, and he's totally transformed, 7 years sober, reunited with his family. But he told me the first time he tried crack cocaine, he was walking in the park and he looked down and he found a bag of crack. And
Just laying there.
And he ended up going to a friend's and they tried it. He never tried it. He said that he remembers the first time he smoked crack. It was the most incredible feeling he ever felt as a high. And then from that point on, you're chasing.
Yeah, I've heard
he
that.
never
Yeah,
could get that
yeah.
same feeling again. So he was chasing it over and over and over again. But look at him. It started with a random thing that he found on the ground.
Yeah.
But he also, in learning about him,
Probably had some
there's a lot of
demons.
stuff
Yeah,
going on.
yeah.
Right. So it was an
Yeah.
escape.
Right.
It was a way to escape. And that's another thing. They're using drugs and alcohol and other things to escape their life.
You think it's getting worse with, especially the last 2+ years with COVID? That's had a real hit on mental health that nobody wants to seem to talk about. And kids today are, they got a lot going on. There's, if you didn't wear the right color shirt today, there's 3 girls that pick on you, or I wouldn't
Post
would you
about
wanna
it,
be,
the social media aspect of
it's
it.
so bad.
Yeah.
Would you want to be 13 today?
It's tough. Thank God I'm not seeing kids, but there are issues with children out there. Thank God I'm not seeing, most of the folks that we deal with are in their 20s, 30s, but they are getting younger. It used to be 40s and 50s. Now I'm seeing a lot of 20-somethings. And it's all addiction, and and a lot of untreated mental health. Like there's a lot of PTSD stuff. There's a lot of anxiety disorder. I think that's the big thing right now: anxiety, depression, and they have no vision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't know who they are. They lost their identity. So when you don't have an identity and then you go into this subculture of homelessness, that becomes your people. It's
Yeah.
your identity. And then to break away from that, it's like you're leaving your people behind,
Right.
How long have you and Leanne been married?
27 years.
34 years.
Yeah.
When Jerry and Nora, how long are they married?
I don't know. 30 something.
30, at least 30, right? I would hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
34 maybe.
34 years. And when you grow up and you have that structure to look at and see an example of somebody that's in a positive relationship, that helps. I think as time goes on, more of these people that I don't know for a fact, but I would imagine a lot of people that end up in a not positive situation probably come from a home that maybe didn't give an example of a how to do it right.
But there's
kind of
also,
thing.
I've met people that came from families of influence, and it's because they couldn't live up to the family standard.
Expectation, yeah.
So there was they had a pressure on them, and they just couldn't meet it, and they cracked. I met some pretty kids of important people in our community that were outside addicted, and
Wow.
so I've learned it doesn't discriminate at
And
all.
I'm sure that that's just as it's all of it's difficult, but the shame and guilt is probably really, really strong in that situation where your family has all of this pressure to be somebody, and you have to be somebody because of who your parents are, and then you're not.
Right.
So it's probably just that
That's tough.
shame.
Well, and then I
is-
get calls so what's happening is of the, I guess of the influence that we've had in the footprint now in our community. I have family members always reaching out to me, or on social
because they
media,
know somebody that
or messenger or Instagram message like, hey, my son's going through. They're asking me for their advice before they become homeless, but they could see it's going in that direction. They're trying to get me to give them some pointers or tips and stuff. And my main thing is you have to love. I believe love never fails, right? But there's tough love, like you were mentioning
Yeah.
boundaries earlier, right? So, but
That was really hard.
yeah,
It
but
was
in the
really
beginning, you
hard.
got to love folks through their struggle, right? As long as you're not being taken advantage of, you set the tough boundary with love and saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. We want to help you. This is the situation we're going to set up. We're all in for you, but you got to meet these expectations. And then if they don't meet them, like you just don't okay, that's it. You cut them off.
Yeah.
You got to
That's the
keep
challenge.
loving and keep loving, because if you break away, then what? Some people just want to cut it off and let them go. And then to what? What are they going into, But if they make that choice, it's on them. I always try to relieve family members of guilt too, because they feel like coulda, shoulda, woulda. And I'm
Right.
like, listen, they made their choices. They're doing what they have to do. You tried. You were a good parent. You know what I mean? It's not your fault. You know what I mean?
Have you seen, that you say 59 people that you lost, friends that you lost, have any of those taken their own life?
ODing, but they didn't try to OD. So
It wasn't a purposeful end.
No. So what'll happen, it'll be like out of the 50, it's 56 people. I think 2/3 of them OD'd. I had 2 women murdered. I had 2
my
guys died
gosh.
in a abandoned house fire. 2 guys were hit by vehicles panhandling, and then they died from the car crash. It's just sad. My first person who died was Michele. I started doing this in 2011. It was 2012. She was flying over by the Herald Place off-ramp by Dinosaur. And she used to hold a sign, and she was an alcoholic. Her thing was drinking. And she lived under the bridge there, and she was in her 40s. And one day I roll up on her, and she's crying. She's all beat up because women get taken advantage of all the way around. Like usually they have a guy attached to them who's personally victimizing them, but it's better than 100 guys victimizing, right? So she didn't have anybody attached to her, so she would get assaulted continually. So one day she's crying to me saying, John, I can't do this anymore. I want to stop. And at that time, no one knew who we were. And I was just starting this. I didn't have all the connections. So I tried to make some calls for her, and nothing happened. And 2 weeks later, she was murdered right there on that corner.
my
They found her dead
gosh.
under the bridge. My heart broke because I couldn't do anything. But that tragedy was written about in the paper, and they interviewed me about her, and that's what kind of took the cover off of the work that we're doing. So her death became a positive. I turned it into a positive because
That's cool.
it let
Yes,
me go
yes.
into new arenas, right?
Right.
But it didn't help me alleviate the pain that Michele was dead. I got to meet her father. I went to the funeral. I went to the
Man.
cemetery. Her dad was on the ground, his hands and knees. She was cremated, and I remember him digging the hole with his hands, and he was bawling his eyes out and putting her urn into the ground. I mean, I'm telling you this from a memory of 11 years ago, and it feels like yesterday, right?
Yeah.
But that'll never leave me. So Michele and those others are the fuel that I use to continually do the work that we're doing. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge at all.
Yes, yeah.
Just one more.
Just one more, just one more.
That's
yeah.
my philosophy, is I'm 289 people indoors, but I'm not looking for 500. I'm looking for 290.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just one more.
Who's the
I
next?
love
that's a-
that.
Who's the next
That's
one?
awesome.
Who's number one, right? So right now we have 35 open cases that we're juggling, friends at different levels of how serious they are to get off the streets. Thank God I have a team of 6.
But I remember seeing you at Ryan, because I'm a huge fan of Ryan McMahon and everything he's tried to do. He the type of person he is came to the light during COVID,
Yeah.
and he showed that he's out to help local businesses. He did great for us and our group, and I saw you at his one of his events.
Yeah.
The
State of the County.
The state of the county, and he was donating. He is big into your
Yeah,
mission,
so
what
the
you do.
county of Onondaga, with the county executive's office, has partnered with us, and we have a program called Higher Ground. So it's a day labor program. So one of the things I learned when we were doing outreach is the fact that even though I got people into housing, they would still go out and panhandle, and it's
Really?
because of the addiction and stuff. So with me, I was like, what can we do to build something that would give them an opportunity to work and get money, and then figure out how we could help them maybe not panhandle. So we've been doing it now for 4 years, and it's called Higher Ground, HIRE. So to hire someone, but kind of playing on words to go higher. It's an alternative to panhandling. It's a hand up, not a handout. So you work for, like today we have 5 folks in the community picking up trash litter, 9 folks on a van with a care manager and our van driver. And at the end of the day, they get compensated cash.
Wow.
They get lunch and breakfast provided to them. But now here's the cool thing, where I was doing a 10 or 15-minute encounter on an outreach, you're on a work van for 5 hours. So it's kind of like here, you
Wow.
build a family
Yeah,
here, right? You have
yeah.
your team is their family.
Yeah.
So they have a family on that van. It's a way to escape your dilemma for 5 hours. You get paid, and then it's like coaching them. Hey, how about going to rehab? How about taking your medicine, or how about getting into housing? So the county executive's office is partnered with us, and they fund that project.
Wow, that is cool.
So when you provide housing or help people get housing, they don't necessarily have to be clean.
No, so in our community, it's called Housing First. So HUD, a lot of federal dollars comes into our community. So HUD, there's programs called Rapid Rehousing, Permanent Supportive Housing, and they're all housing programs that you don't have to be sober or straight. They want you to get you indoors, and then they feel like once you get in, then there's a care manager assigned to you that they would coach you through life, and then maybe you'll buy into sobriety once you're safely housed.
Okay.
So with me, it's like, but I've had folks that have gotten housed and they still don't change their tune because addiction is the beast, right?
Right.
But then I've gotten guys who got indoors, and all of a sudden they don't panhandle as much anymore, or they change their mind and they're not addicted anymore, or we've gotten guys jobs. Like I've gotten, I think 15 people came through our work program and then ended up getting into employment. So there's guys and gals who are ready to make a change, and then we vet them out for the employer. So I'm not going to present someone to the employer unless I feel that they're ready to change. The hardest thing is transportation. How do they get to their job? So most of the places that we connect them with are with restaurant guys in our community that are like downtown centrally located, for it's easy for them to get to work.
I remember calling you one time because the labor shortage is real with restaurants, and it's not a function of how much they pay $1 an hour or whatever. It's just a lack of people in that industry. And I knew you were in that industry, and I reached out to John one time and asked him about, hey, is there anybody you think that could be placed? And I like your answer. Your first question was something I hadn't realized was, it's very difficult to put somebody in a situation because you've been behind those red doors.
Right.
And what happens in kitchens a lot of time in
Right.
restaurants is not conducive for someone staying sober.
Right. Yeah, and I think
It's
for me,
challenging.
Yeah, for me, it's one of the things. Like when I was running Asti, it was me and my 2 brothers. We were
Chris
and
Rich.
my brother Rich,
Yeah.
and my parents were there. My mom, my dad. But we had a staff of 30. I mean, on Friday night, I had 30 people working on one night, right? But I remember we ran a tight ship. Like my brothers and I all overcame a lot of our past demons, like I talked about. Yeah. So you can't out-hustle a hustler, right? So I knew like the telltale signs of things, and we would catch things in the bud. But I know that I had friends that ran other restaurants, and it was like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
In regards to
Yeah.
drinking and drugging.
Yeah.
You got to be really careful. So with our guys, some of them overcoming addiction, I have to be careful where I place them,
I had a question I've always wanted to ask you, and you don't have to answer it, and I hope I'm not asking a bad question, is that, I've known you for a while, since Asti, you and Christian and
Yeah.
Rich both, all 3 of you. And when you left Asti, I knew you were your parents are great people, and they're the restaurant. But when you left, you were kind of Asti.
Yep.
So I knew once you left, it didn't stay the same, and it eventually closed.
Yep.
And my mind was always like, geez, if John had stayed, that restaurant would still be open. And the fact that you left, I don't take anything away from Christian or Richard.
Yeah.
But you being gone had that restaurant closed. Do you feel?
Yeah. So it's like, so when we started that, we owned that building. And my dad, I said I would never do restaurant business. We had a pizzeria from 1995 to 2000.
Tumino's.
Right.
Yeah.
I got out of it in 2000, and I remember saying I'll never get back in that world again. And my dad starts tinkering in that storefront, has this idea, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I felt like I was being pulled back into it, so I decided to go back into it. So it's me and my one brother, Rich, and Chris was living in Vegas, and we called him back. So now you got 3 brothers working a restaurant, family.
Yeah.
So
Everything was beautiful. You didn't
No, but
argue at all.
No, yeah,
Never had
right.
any fights.
No, you had to learn that we're corporate partners, but we're also siblings. That crossed over a lot, and I was the president of the corporation, right? And I was like kind of the visionary of it. Then when I left, Chris left maybe 4 years
He's
later
over at Tuscarora still, right?
with Pete Capicilli.
Yeah.
And then Rich closed in 2019.
What's he doing? Is he still in the restaurant?
No, he's doing construction stuff now. But for me, the great thing when the three of us were together, we all had our strength that it made us a whole team. When you took my strength away, the other two tried to rise up, and then you take Chris away.
Yeah, it's
Rich was
too
the last
much.
man standing, and it was hard, And then thank God we closed and sold everything just before COVID happened.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So we got out of it. But
Are they going to be a restaurant again, you think?
I don't know. But I'll tell you this, though. When I come into places, I love going to restaurants. This place is beautiful. But I could never do it again. I'm like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yes.
I give it up to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's.
Yeah, but it's worth it. I'm not saying it in a bad way.
No. It's,
Like, I know that what I'm supposed to be doing now. Like I said, I'm not afraid because I know that's where I'm supposed to be. For you, Michelle, I believe this is your thing. You know
Yeah.
you're supposed to be here, and you're gonna do what you got to do to make
Right.
it work. But again, that was my season. That season ended.
Yes.
And I give it up to restaurateurs all
Yeah.
the time.
Where did you come up with? Because I love the sauce. You can buy the sauce. That's helping to fund
Yep.
what you do as well. But the thing on the bottom says "Eat with a Purpose." I just love that. How did that come about?
I went to do disaster relief in Joplin when the tornado went through there, and I met the pastor of a church there, and they talked about purpose-driven giving. And I remember when we opened up in my father's kitchen and started thinking about using them. So I still think like a business guy, applying it to not-for-profit. So I was thinking, how do I use the marketplace to generate revenue and awareness for our work? And I was like, eating with a purpose. So like the sauce and the syrup and the coffee are ways for people to, you might not be able to give me $50 a month to help me, but you might be able to buy a jar of sauce or a bag of coffee
Yeah.
or
What's
whatever.
a jar of sauce is like $50.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
7. And like across the street, or Witty Wicks sells our
yeah.
sells our product over
Yeah.
there as well. And it's just eating with a purpose. And if you're going to have pasta, why not have a jar of our sauce there? And then you could teach your kids about homeless services,
Right.
or it turns into a talking point. It's also branding. So if you're buying sauce that's in your cabinet, hey, you might not eat sauce today, but you're seeing in my father's kitchen in your face. So it's kind of that concept. But again, it's eating with a purpose. Just you're filling your belly, you're feeding your family, but you're helping me feed another mouth too at the same time. So Wegmans carries it now, especially all these specialty shops, and it's been a great thing.
Do you make it right on site? You
So I
got it.
was making it at Nelson Farms, and then
good.
I was doing it myself. But then when Wegmans picked up our product, I couldn't keep up
No,
with the demand. So now Giovanni Foods and
Oh, yeah.
Lou
He's a
Demet,
co-packer. Yeah.
he packs it for us.
They do a lot of. I think they do. I don't know if they do canali sauce as well.
I don't
They do
know, but
Joey
I learned a
sauce.
lot about mathematics and upscaling. So I was always concerned about, your recipe here turning
Yeah.
into like thousands
Yeah.
of jars. And it's just math and upscaling. And one of the things was interesting is the tomato that I use in my sauce, it didn't come in the bulk format. So we had to go to a farm in California that was similar to the tomato. So they kept giving me these taste testing things, and I had to. They couldn't trick me, I'm
Right.
like, no, this is not mine. That's your. They finally said to me, John, we're going to get it to the point where you're going to question whether it's yours. You probably never not know your baby,
Right.
but we want you to think maybe it's not. But the general public wouldn't get it. So, but for me, it's the sauce that we
Great
use
sauce.
at us.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We buy it all the time. We don't need as much pasta at home because I don't know if you see on Facebook, but we go out just a little bit. We're out like 3 nights a week eating out. So it's rare.
3 times a day you're
Yeah,
out.
it seems like it sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
I don't even. Do you even have a kitchen at your house?
Yes, we have a kitchen.
Well, one of the great things too for us being in the food biz and knowing that I got to meet a lot of good restaurateurs, and there's a lot of them that jumped up and stepped up, like Paulie from Pisa.
Oh my God, yeah,
he
he's
was
an
he was
awesome guy.
feeding our
Jeez.
higher ground crew for like a
Oh,
whole
really?
month. Yeah,
He's
it-
the
he
nicest
was-
guy. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's hired a couple of our guys work
Oh,
for
nice.
him. Yeah, so for me, it's like when you get community buy-in. So one of the things I love about partnership, I always tell people, whether either you could donate financially, you could donate items of clothing and stuff that I take, or you could give your time or your talent, or for like the restaurateur person, they're giving their opportunity for employment. That's a way to give back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Paul's a good guy.
That was what my next question was going to be. Is not free to do all of this.
Right.
So what can how can people
Yeah.
help?
A great
I
question,
guess.
Michelle.
Yeah.
So one of the hardest things I had to learn in doing this is when I ran the restaurant, you would provide a product and then there would be an exchange of money for something that you're providing.
Right.
With me now, there is no product. I mean, other than the sauces and stuff we talked about, but it's you got to buy into our work.
Right.
It was the most humbling experience for me to go out and ask for donations, right? So, but again, I had to finally learn it isn't about John Tumino. It's about the work that John and his wife are doing. You have to believe in the mission as a donor, right? So with me, it's fundraising. Like I send out 1,000 newsletters every month.
Wow.
We have supporters we have people in California that support us, in Colorado, locally, we have a bunch of people that support us. And the majority of our funding source is private, but like with that higher ground, that's funded by the county. But everything else is we get in as private donor. And it's me hustling and talking and bringing awareness and understanding. And hopefully it resonates with someone. Like right now, we're starting a new project called Lifehouse for women coming out of human trafficking. A lot of the women that we work with on the streets start selling themselves, or they get pushed out to sell themselves, and it's horrific. And so you're a woman, you're homeless, you're addicted, and now you got the trauma of being a prostitute, right? You sold your body for money, and then you have to live with that. So we're working with Judge Davis in trafficking court to help women learn to live again. We have a house that we're going to be housing two women at a time.
Isn't it like Vera House?
Vera House does a lot of things with domestic violence
Yeah.
and people that I'm describing, but our house is a year project. If you decide to come to this house, you're working with the trafficking court for 8 months through their process. We're going to house you for up to a year, and we're going to teach you and pamper you and love you, and hopefully you're a different person after a year, but that's privately funded as well. So with me, it's like, I have to hire 6 staffers right now by faith. It's a $200,000 budget. So it's like, now it's raising money for projects, right? But thank God we have a community of people that believe in the work that we're doing and they support us. So.
Well, that's one of my questions. I wrote down a bunch of questions to ask. One of them is, you've traveled for sure. I see posts. You and Leanne travel and seem to enjoy yourself and travel. And you're from Syracuse, which is great, but you ever get to the point where you think, well, geez, why am I just doing this in Syracuse? Could Rochester use help? Could Buffalo use help? Could, Chicago use help?
Yeah.
Could a small town in Mississippi use help? Do you find yourself going, my gosh, I should be helping more in other areas, or why Syracuse?
So that's a great question. It's something I thought about, but it's hard to duplicate. Like having one restaurant's one thing, but having 5 is a whole different thing, right? So
I know.
She's going to have 2
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
it's a lot, there's more staff, it's everything, right?
Yeah.
And now you're being pulled in 2 different ways. So one of the things so now what I do is I'll go and speak, or if an organization wants to get some like pointers, or, I'll go in and do like a session with them.
Okay, yeah.
But then the idea came to me, the sauce. So if I could use, you brought up Rochester. So I had an idea to go to Rochester with our sauce in their stores. They have 27 stores there. But Wegmans was hesitant because I didn't have a footprint there. So why are people going to buy your sauce? So I found an agency in Rochester that does homeless services, and I wanted to showcase them and use 30% of the profits would stay locally in Rochester.
Oh, wow.
To fund that project. Yeah. So then it's a win for the community. It's a win for Wegmans. And then hopefully a buzz would get out about, hey, there's an outreach in Syracuse helping an outreach in Rochester, and they're using the sauce. But then COVID happens.
Oh, jeez.
So, but to me, the sauce could be the vehicle to generate revenue, where I would fund projects around the area that do similar work.
When you thought you were going to speak, I thought you would have said so there's similar problems in Rochester, and there may be somebody that's trying to do what you're doing, but maybe isn't as successful at it. Mm-hmm. And you go out and speak to them and educate them, and then they can learn from your model and repeat your model.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they can help, and then when that person gets off the ground, then the 2 of you can go to Buffalo or go to Albany and mimic it.
Well, I think it's so when I was
a franchisee. You're franchising in my father's kitchen.
I guess, but I was a restaurant guy. I would I'm sure you do the same thing. You probably go places and you get ideas, right?
Yeah.
But you still want to be you.
Yeah.
And I think that's I don't want to make someone be in my father's kitchen. I want someone to be their organization,
Yeah,
but
good
give them
point.
some tips and tools.
The network of helping each
Yeah.
other.
Right. And I think that one of the things we do really well in Central New York is we have buy-in with the mayor's office, the county executive's office, CATCO's office. So there's a lot of action happening on the ground where a lot of communities don't have what we have. Onondaga County is rich in resources. A lot of homeless folks around our county come to Onondaga County because there's so much resource here.
Really?
If you go to Cayuga County or Madison County, you're living outside. There's nothing. There's no
So
outreach
they find
worker.
themselves coming here because they know you have services.
Right, but here's the challenge for our county. So if you're a Madison County resident and you're getting like your food stamps, your SNAP benefits there, and you want to come to Onondaga County, they will try to push you back because we can't handle everyone
Can't
coming
take
here.
everybody.
So you'd have to become an Onondaga County resident, give up what you had back there, and live in our shelter here, and then pick up the ball. But like all the opioid centers, like for methadone or Suboxone or either Kraus or Helio, they're all here.
Yeah.
You know, Canastota doesn't have that,
No.
but there's homeless people out there.
So
they're
that's
living
another
out in the
question
woods.
that I had. Do you just do like, what's your territory or whatever? Do you go out to Fayetteville?
Yeah.
Is that too far? Do you just do the downtown section or how?
Another great question, bud.
Yeah, geez. See, Michelle? Tell Michelle that.
Well, I got questions, but you
Okay,
won't
I'm
let me
so-
talk.
I'm sorry. I'm
just
sorry.
kidding.
Yes.
That's a
Go
good point, Michelle.
Yes, I do have a tendency.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
So
yeah.
the question is, we're city proper because we're so small of an agency. Rescue Mission pretty much handles the outside county
Yep.
stuff, but we are starting to go to an extended day with our outreach, and we're going to be going into the perimeter. So we might be coming. We
wow.
could come out to Camillus. I know I've been getting calls about some people that are in the Costco parking lot holding a sign, or at Walmart. They've been seeing folks. But again, that's a Rescue Mission call would come up here, but I'll be able to do that coming in January
nice.
1. Yeah.
Nice.
So we could go outside the city a little bit. But you don't see a lot of it outside the city.
No. And to be honest, I'll 100% be more conscious now that I've talked to you. But how long does it, like you say, I try to make them not feel invisible and, you know.
One of the things I remember when my wife was pregnant with my daughter, you know, when she became pregnant, everywhere I went, I seen pregnant women.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
became
Yeah.
noticeable,
Yeah.
right? So one of the things I hope is whoever's listening to this, or even yourselves, now you're going to drive around, you're going to see them. They were always there. They're just going to be visible
Yeah.
now, right? So because of awareness.
So what can we do?
Yeah.
Even if we're driving by,
Yeah.
how do we make them feel visible?
Great question.
Yes,
Michelle,
Michelle,
that's
great
awesome.
Yeah.
So I always tell people to be proactive. So if you're someone who feels like you want to do something, right? So you get a gallon size Ziploc bag. You can leave it in your vehicle. It could have like deodorant in there, granola bar, wet wipes, gloves now in the winter, hand warmers to heat up your
Really?
hand. So you put all that, you preload these bags and you leave them in your car somewhere. And if you happen to be on an off ramp and you feel like you want to do something,
Yeah.
you can roll the window down and say, "Hey, my name's Bud or Michelle. I have this bag of goodies. Would you like it?" You offer it to them. Don't assume they're going to want it. So
Yeah.
give people power of choice, right? So if they say no, don't be offended. At least then you did your part, right?
Yeah.
Right.
If they say yes, you give them the bag. You could put like my information in there about In My Father's Kitchen. Say, "Hey, do you know John from In My Father's Kitchen?" If not, hey, well, call him. He'll help you.
Yeah.
If not, then hey, all right, you're not invisible. Have a great day. So to me, it's like prepare yourself in advance. So when you don't have an awkward moment where if you don't have anything, you just don't want to look over there because if you look, then you have to do something.
Man,
Yeah.
that you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's- I do that. I feel, and I've said
Or
this.
you pretend you're looking for something.
Yes, I've done that, man.
Yeah.
Now you're giving me the guilt. I feel guilty. But I've said this a million times to you is I feel now at 59 years old or the last couple of years that I try to do good. I want to put my head on my pillow at the end of the night and I want to believe that I did some good for somebody and that I'm a good person. And I think I am and I try to be. And then I'll get up in the morning, I'll look at some posts from In My Father's Kitchen. I'm like, I'm not even close to being good because I can't compare to the life change and the commitment you made to do better. It's just amazing.
Well, I want to relieve your guilt. So
Okay.
here's what I say to folks. You're in your car minding your own business. You're driving along and you come to an off-ramp. There's no reason to feel bad if the person standing on the corner has the unction and the cojones to be able to stand there because of their brokenness and panhandle, if there should be any guilt or shame, it should be on that side of the window, right? But there isn't because they're desperate. They're broken. Their addiction is driving them. So they've smashed through their shame, right?
Yeah.
They're like, I don't care how shameful this is. I need the money, right? You should be able to roll your window down and just say hi to them and not feel bad. You know what I mean? You don't have to feel, you don't have to give them anything. I always say, don't give money. Never give money. And that's hard for people, right? You feel like you're easing your conscience by giving them $5.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, I'd rather have you have a conversation and say, hey, hi, and here's some stuff if you'd like it. And
I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start doing that.
And
My
the
mom
money,
does
don't
that.
give money.
She said that.
Yeah.
Your mom's a better person than you, too.
I know.
Or
Better
socks.
person than you.
Or the
I know,
other thing
I
is
know.
like socks are huge outside. So
Socks,
yeah,
really.
brand new. So they're always, when I'm giving out stuff, socks are always something that I give out.
So if I had to build my own gallon Ziploc bag,
pair of white socks,
Socks?
stick of deodorant. Right now, hand warmers when we're going into the winter, wet wipes, travel size pack of wet wipes. So if they're living outdoors, they can at least wash themselves down. They could use it like toilet
bottle
paper.
of water.
A bottle of water if
Water,
you'd like to. Yeah, that just gets heavy, you know, in
yeah.
the bag. Feminine products, if you know, you see, you know,
I
those.
don't even buy those for my wife. I'm a little, okay. Yeah.
Listen, that leads into my next question though, because I feel like that's just crazy, but I'm a very big picture person. That's how I think. So when you look at the big picture of addiction and homelessness and human trafficking and even down to for me, I feel like it's frustrating that there's so much work to be done. So how do you get past that to really narrow in and say the work that I'm doing matters and that you can't change everything? You just got like,
That's awesome. So
How do you turn off?
well,
I can't imagine that you could. I
So the
couldn't.
macro, like you said, so I have to get in the micro moment. So I go into that one-on-one, right? Am I going to solve homelessness? No, I think homelessness will have with us always addiction, mental health. But what can I do micro level, right? So I could change your life. You know what I mean? And then it's like one at a time. Like I said earlier,
Yeah.
Just one more.
If I think the big picture, you go crazy because you don't have, there's no answer for it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
It's
think
more
that-
of like changing people's lives one lunch at a time. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Right? One lunch at a time. I'm going out there and that's all I could do. And who's next?
Yeah.
You know, right now we have 35 people we're juggling. No one's really committed yet to like, they're all in different places of maybe I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. And once they say yes and we latch on and we start going down that road and they get indoors, that's where you're like, oh yes. But I have sleepless nights. You know, just give you an example. We had someone OD the other day. Didn't die. We had to Narcan him 2 times to bring him back to life. My team did. That was traumatic experience. Like, you know, we had to talk about it and like, I don't know if you guys do it here, but in the restaurant, when I was running the restaurant at the end of the night, we would kind of have like a debrief about, hey, what went well, what didn't go good, what could we have done better? So we did that there with them. We had a 45-minute conversation with my team about, what are you feeling right now? Are you mad? Are you sad? I don't want you to go home with this load, this burden.
Yeah.
So I've learned, like you said, you see my wife and I traveling, I shut it down. And do family.
You have to, wouldn't you?
And I'd have to do family time because I have to do self-care. If I don't do self-care, I'll be no good for anybody.
Yeah.
So I had to learn, even in the restaurant world, I had to do that too. At the end, I learned that a little later than I should have to make sure you take care of yourself because this will consume you as well as the work I'm doing. And when you're working with folks who are in need, and you do it well and they latch on, they don't want to let go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hard. And it's in one way you love the fact that they love you, but then the other thing is you have to realize you're not their savior.
You can't be smothered.
I can't be, I'm not your answer. I'm your problem solver. I'm not the answer for you. I could get you to the answer. That's how I have to look at life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's tough.
So you and Leanne, how'd you guys meet?
At church. Actually, she's from Colorado,
Okay.
migrated here in 1991, went to a church. I met her in church and we started dating.
Because you had said you had what makes you better at what you do now is that you've maybe been in that shoe of somebody you're talking to. So I was wondering, curiosity got me, was Leanne part of your life before that, while you were having that
So
challenge.
no. My life. So Leanne got to meet the polished me.
Oh,
I was
geez.
on the.
My wife did not meet the polished me. I'm the polished me because of my wife. But
So I'll be transparent here. So I had a really bad gambling addiction, and I had a sexual addiction. And looking back in my past, I feel bad for the things that I did and the people that I hurt. I'm not that person anymore. And there was a lot of tragic things that happened back then. And I overcame those things, right? So I know that there is another way. I did a 180.
without her.
Without my wife, it was
Wow.
me. It was me more. I added the faith part. The faith part came into my life. I finally bought into Jesus, right? So, to me, being raised a Roman Catholic boy and then hearing all those stories and finally embracing my faith is what gave me the strength to change, right? And then it was the journey and the process of transformation. It wasn't like hey, you woke up the next day, you're different. I still thought the same way and still had the same issues, but then I had to go inside and work on the outside. I think sometimes we try to work on the outside, but the inside's busted. You got to go inside and then the outside changes. And for me, I started to learn about myself and why I did those things and why I was addicted to the things. I was self-medicating myself, you know what I mean, with a lot of stuff. Because of the little John was hurt and I needed to repair it, you know? So I could relate to these folks when I see them and their addiction and they start telling me some of their stuff. I maybe didn't have a drug addiction, but addiction has the same qualities.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? So with me, I see that in them, but I also see there's hope. I know that there's a way out.
Right. Proof.
Yeah. And Kevin, our van driver, is the actual proof. I mean, he lived that experience of homelessness and addiction with drugs, and he's out of it. So there's a way out. I had addiction that I overcame. Thank God I had loving parents and siblings that I understood, and I made it through stuff. And
But because you talk about, you know, I still believe you're one of the nicest and greatest ideas of people I've been fortunate enough to meet. But you're not doing this alone, and it's a big commitment. Leanne makes a commitment to you for life, and you had a lifestyle because I'm sure she was with you when you were running the restaurant.
Oh yeah, she was my bookkeeper and all that.
So you got to make a decision that, by the way, I've decided to do this, and our whole life is going to turn upside down. And she's got to say yes or no. Some people don't do that.
And I think
so. She's.
I think for me, one of the things I learned, my daughter grew up in the restaurant. So when we started Asti, my daughter was 5 months old. And it showed from the first 10 years of Abigail's life, it was restaurant world, like coming down to the restaurant. But looking back, I could have done it so much better in regards to my quality. I talked about quality, self-care. You know, my wife pretty much raised my daughter as a single parent because I was at the restaurant. I remember working 77 hours in the beginning in a week, just when things were starting, you know, and then we were expanding and all that. So I learned one of the things I learned from the restaurant world and not transposing it onto in my father's kitchen is I cannot let that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
So
I have a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And I'm a single parent. And so I shut down on Sundays. It's family
Good
days.
for
I
you.
don't answer any texts. I don't answer any emails. I don't do anything because, like you said, you have to take care of yourself first before you can take care
and
of
the place will be
anything
standing.
else.
You know, it might not be the way you liked it, whatever happened, but at least it's going to be there and you'll handle it on Monday. And with me now I think it's building a team around you, right?
Yeah.
So with me, I have a team now of folks, and we never do outreach on the weekends because the thing is on the weekends, the services around town, there's nothing open.
That's a good point.
So with me, there's only thing you really could do is feed someone and maybe clothe them. But if there was an emergency and they called me, I might get something to them. But usually it waits till Monday, you know what I mean? So, but again, it's taking care of yourself so that I could take care of others. You know, that's the important thing. I think as the older
doing it
I
together
get,
too. So it's nice. I always wondered, geez, you made that decision, and look, I've made decisions, and I've learned that you're supposed to ask your wife before you do those decisions sometimes.
We're
but
partners.
that's a commitment on her part as well.
Well, I think for me, my wife and I, Leanne and I are co-founders, so we founded this together, so we're partners. When I approached her about, I think this is what we're supposed to do. Like she already bought into going to Central America. And then when this changed, I think she trusted me enough that I was hearing God, in one respect, based on my track record, she believed in me, and then she believed in the work too. And we just did it together, There's nothing better than working with someone by your side that's
sure.
with you and
your best friend.
You're doing it together, right?
So. You have questions? I have a couple questions I was going to ask.
Yeah, hold on one second.
Okay. So I'll ask when she's gone. In 57, I'm 59. People ask you, geez, if you could be any age you want, what age would you be?
I think my internal mind, like I have this question a lot with people. I feel like I'm 28 inside my head.
Right.
That's my internal clock. then I look in the mirror, I'm like,
yeah,
that's not 28.
No.
So I think I'm happy where I'm at because of who I am. But if I could have this knowledge and this
You
understanding.
don't get to have that, though.
Right.
What age would you be?
30.
30?
Yeah.
With what you knew at 30?
Oh, no. I'd rather be where I'm at.
That's my answer.
Yeah.
People don't like if I could be any age I am. Look, I can't play basketball like I did. I can't golf like I did. I don't have, it's harder to get up in the morning, all that stuff. If I had to pick an age to be, it's 59.
Right.
My life's perfect right now. I'm doing what I like to do. I have a great family and a great friends, and Nora's my friend.
I know. I knew you were going to say that.
I think for me, more recently, I've been thinking of legacy. Like, so you're basically, we're going in the last quarter of our life, right? So if you make it into your 80s or whatever, so I figure, okay,
I'm just trying to get to 60,
man.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying we're in the last stretch, you know what I mean? So to me, it's like, I feel young, I'm healthy. I don't feel my age in my head. I do things that people my age usually aren't doing, as jumping around under bridges and all that other stuff. So I'm thinking I could continue to do this work till I'm 80. I could be 80 years old still serving people if I'm in good shape. But what am I setting up for myself? Like, will In My Father's Kitchen go beyond me?
Because you're the brand.
That's my mission. My mission is like, because it's a not-for-profit. If I were to die or my life ends, there's money there that has to keep going. Mm-hmm. Usually an agency, when they shut down, they have to give all the money away.
Yeah.
I want it to keep going because I want the work to keep going. You know what I mean? So with me, it's like I'm thinking futuristically in regard to the legacy of In My Father's Kitchen, but I'm in the moment, staying in the moment, because the moment is where I'm meeting the people every day. So I'm dual-minded in one respect. I can't change the past.
Right.
I'm believing for a great future, but I gotta be.
You can't get to here until you get
I gotta be right here, right now, for the people I'm working with right now.
The other question I have, and I think I know the answer, but in your whole life, I always ask people, who's been the biggest influence in your life? Like a person you met, maybe it's a person you not met, but who's your biggest influence?
I'm trying to think which way I want to go. So like spiritually speaking, I think Jesus, the person.
That's what I figured you would say.
Jesus would be the person in regards to the way you live your life, how you act in pressure situations, things of that nature. But I'm thinking more like on this realm here. Yeah. I would say anybody there's many people that I like, but they've committed to something that's greater than them.
Right.
And they then allowed something to move through them to make an impact, right? And I'm thinking of our national parks. What's the president? Was it Carry the Big Stick guy?
Teddy Roosevelt?
I think he's the one who was influential in making sure that the lands were preserved. Yeah. And so you think of I was at one of the parks yesterday with my wife to Hockonock Falls or something, Western New York here, right? And you're walking around, it's like, if it wasn't for that president, we might not be walking around here. So he thought bigger than himself. I'm sure he got flack for making those lands untouchable.
Yeah.
But now we're enjoying them years later, right? So he thought beyond of that because we would have consumed it.
Yeah.
And developed it or whatever. So with me, anyone who sees beyond themselves to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good answer. Questions?
Yeah.
Like Michele.
She's looking ahead. What? I like this one. Do you ever have any nicknames growing up that you liked or didn't like?
They used to call me Hollywood when I was
Hollywood?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I would have never guessed that.
So I was telling Michele earlier, I grew up on Tip Hill, or hung around with a lot of Irish boys. There was a lot of drinking and stuff. And I remember I was the Italian guy in the Irish mafia.
Oh my gosh.
But the funny thing was, we would go out and we would always land at one of our friends' house and crash at his house with his parents there. The mother and father would wake up, to be like 7 of us laying on the living room floor and stuff. But they would tease me because back then I had a head of hair and I was all slicked back, and I would wake up the same way I went to
Your
sleep.
hair would look the same.
I would make sure that I was pristine when I got up, and that's where that name comes
Hollywood.
from. Yeah,
Oh
I
my
still
gosh.
have one friend who sees me. That's what he still calls me to this day.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good nickname.
Yeah.
Nicknames growing up? What you?
Yeah. Well, not like that though.
Yeah.
Like people called me Mish or Shelly. Yeah.
Nicknames from that you didn't like growing up? They didn't. In Catholic school,
Not really. No.
public school.
What about
get
you?
Nicknames. When I was in high school, we grew up very poor, single mom at some points, not single mom at other points, and for whatever reason, our when you talk about food being a part of your life, we didn't eat well. We just ate whatever was available. So my mom wasn't home to cook meals. She was tending bar or driving a bus or working or doing something. So we would just grab whatever. So I ran track in high school, and parents would pack their lunch. And I would always just grab a bag of Doritos and a soda. And that's what I had for lunch on the bus. So I'd eat Doritos and mow on them, and you get this stuff all over your face and stuff. And my buddy Kerry, who's still my best friend, I've known him 50 years. I was best friend man in his wedding. He was best man in mine. You couldn't eat all the bag of Doritos on the trip. It's weird how nicknames come. So I ate some of them and folded up the bag. And then when I opened up the bag, a fly came out of the bag. Yeah. So my buddy Kerry's like, oh my God, Bud is like a fly on Doritos because he eats Doritos all the time. So everyone called me the Fly. So I was the Fly. And in fact, my senior year of high school, every yearbook I signed it the Fly, and I drew a picture of a fly.
Oh my God.
So dorky.
Yeah.
When you look back on stuff you did, it was so dorky. But
You probably thought it was so cool. You were like, I'm going to draw a picture.
But it's
so
crazy
cool.
how you come up with a nickname that at the time was just, and then it's just
The
insane.
funny thing is there's our friends outside, they all have street names. So they don't usually
Really?
go by their real names. Like when you meet someone, you're always going to get a different name. Like one guy was Lefty, the guy was Lost. There's this name after one guy, Lucky, So they all have these names. I think sometimes the name, not on our, not what we're talking about here, but I think sometimes on my level in the streets, I think they're trying to escape
exactly
who they
yeah.
were. They don't want to be known for whatever they were before, and they try to assimilate to a new identity on the street and stuff like that. Yeah. One
Never
guy's
thought of
named
it.
Tim, the guy I first met,
Yeah.
his nickname is Bandana. That's what they call him on the
Because he
street.
probably was wearing a
Or
bandana.
he wears it all the time. You never see him without it. One time I seen him without the bandana, I didn't recognize him.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
Yeah.
that's funny. What else was I going to ask you? You travel a lot. What's your favorite place to go? Favorite vacation spot?
Colorado. That's where Leanne's from. If I would live anywhere else in the United States, it would be in the Colorado Springs area. I just loved it. It was just the mountains always call my name when I'm there. I just
Yeah.
want to go up there. Pikes
I've never
Peak,
been.
get there.
Oh my
you gotta go.
my brother is the one I was speaking to about that had some challenges here, and he had to do, like you had said, a part of what was happening to him and why he couldn't break away was the community of people he was around. So we knew that he had to go. And he's with a girl that actually had some addiction problems as well, and they found each other again, got clean, and they moved. They live in Leadville, Colorado. They love it out there, and it's the perfect place for them.
Yeah.
And Colorado just seems a place where he can be himself
Yep.
and not have those challenges that he had here. So
Yeah, lately nature's been really calling me lately. I'm not really an outdoors hiking kind of a person, but for me, I think I feel peace when I'm out in nature. I think for me, I feel God there as well. There's a scripture that comes to my mind that says, what is man that you are mindful of us? When you look into the stars and you look into the mountains and then you look at us, it's like in the scope of creation, you're looking at you want to be involved in our lives. What's going on here in the majesty of all of this? And I guess another place I'd like to go is like Montana or
really outside.
I want to see this. Like we don't see the stars here. You know what I mean?
No.
Like
Yeah,
at night, I want to
yeah.
go out and see
No.
the stars like you see on TV.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to go to. I guess there's a place in Arizona where you could go look at stargazing.
I was just at the Grand Canyon. When you talk about
Yeah.
feeling small and
Yeah.
the place the world is, standing outside and looking around the Grand Canyon, you can't feel anything other than how did This couldn't have happened accidentally.
Right, exactly.
And then we went to Sedona. It was just.
Oh, did you go to Sedona?
It was beautiful.
I did. I went to Sedona too.
It was. So
but there was wildfires while I was there.
Oh, geez.
Did I tell you that?
No. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
we had to leave because there was wildfires all in there.
It's the tip, walking around the top of the Grand Canyon was amazing. Yeah. And we walked down a little bit, and I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And then we went to Sedona, and you're more or less down looking up. That was way more intense.
Yeah.
Looking around and seeing something. When the sun goes down and it hits that stuff, oh my gosh.
So that's it. So let me give you, I'll paint an analogy. So you just painted a wonderful picture of the immensement of how you felt and compared to that.
Small.
Our friends outside with addiction and mental health, that's the same feeling. They feel like there's no way, like it's hopeless. This is way bigger than me. How am I going I going to overcome this? You know, we're thinking of it more in a majestic sense, but they're feeling like in an overwhelming. You could be overwhelmed by that.
Yeah.
Like how am I going to get out of here? And that's how they feel. You know what I mean? And to me, it's like talking, like you said, macro, micro. That macro feeling they're feeling, I'm trying to bring it down. Say, listen, we can help you. It just takes the first step.
Tomorrow.
One step.
Tomorrow.
Then the next step. The next thing you know, you're out the door, you know?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, especially with mental health issues, which I also struggle with. Yeah. So, like, in that, being able to just look at that, okay, just get off the couch. Like that next little step. But when you're in it, it feels so big. So
overwhelming.
It's
I don't want to get up. I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay here. But, you know, here's what I tell my friends all the time. And if maybe for someone who's listening to this program, there's the pain of discipline and there's the pain of regret, right? So when you're like sitting on that couch and you're feeling that pain, like I don't want to get up, you're depressed, you know, you've got pain. Or you could get up and still feel pain, but do something productive.
Right.
I said, if you're going to have pain, pick the good pain. At least you're doing something to challenge yourself. Because if you decide not to do that, you're going to have pain. And then you're going to regret it because you can't change
you wasted the whole day.
And you can't change it then, right?
Yeah.
So go for the good pain. You're going to have pain either way. Pick the good pain. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
When you have a 4-year-old running around, you makes you get off the couch.
Yeah.
We're an hour and 15 minutes in, so we probably ought to wrap up.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a question
no, I just wanted a little bit to not make it lighter, but just some of your favorite things in CNY that you like to do, places to go.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I like to go out to eat. I've never been in here, so I'm like, I was already thinking, I'm going to bring my wife here. So that's
nice.
She's going to get new customers.
Do you have a favorite restaurant?
I don't. So, you know, the funny thing is, I don't like to go to Italian places.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I would have thought for sure your favorite would have been an Italian restaurant.
No. I grew up with it. My dad, my dad's an awesome cook as well. And I think sometimes I don't want to be disappointed, right? So I'd rather try new places, new things, restaurants, anything to do with like burger, steak, Mexican. Now that we're starting to get some better Mexican places, because my wife's from out west, so was big for her. I just tried a new Vietnamese, that New Century place up the street from my house. Vietnamese
I've
place.
never been. That's not my
pho, whatever they call it.
I don't steer away that far, but yes.
So I like.
Why? You gotta try it.
I like to challenge I'll try anything.
Challenge your palate. Yeah.
My wife and my daughter are pretty skittish around trying new things, but I'll try anything new. So I love going out to any kind of place. I don't have a favorite. I did find can I mention a place?
Sure. Gosh,
the Angry Garlic.
Oh my gosh, Jeff. Yeah, Jeff's
so I
a
went
great
in
guy.
there and I had a burger. I was like, holy cow, this is awesome.
He's opening Smokehouse the end of the month.
Okay.
The old Lac 24 is going to be open. He's a great guy and a great guy for Beeville.
Yeah.
He is about Baldwinsville. He's not about. We know restaurant owners that are me first restaurant owners. I don't have any problem with that. It's a business, right? And you're out to make your place the most money and be the most successful. And sometimes that might be in spite of the guy down the street. That's not what we're trying to build.
Yeah.
We're trying to build people that want to make everybody successful. And that's how Jeff is.
Yeah, and I think that as if you have that mentality, then the community becomes successful all the way around, right? So it's not like one of the things too I learned is about chasing money. Like, so I found out that when you chase it, it almost seems like it's unattainable.
Yeah.
And it's when you just enjoy something and you're doing it for the love of it that the money comes. Like you don't have to chase them. Just do what you do and do it best and let it happen. And then it comes in that way, you know? So I know that answering the question about restaurants, but what was the original question that you said?
Other things to do in CNY.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So I love to, right now I'm going around finding places to go in the fall. October is my favorite time of the month. So I'm trying to get outdoors as much as possible. I love to go into a football game or an SU basketball
Nice,
game.
yeah.
I live by the stadium where the Syracuse Mets play. So I try to catch a
Nice,
Mets
yeah,
game.
yeah.
So I'm always trying to, being in the restaurant, I'm always trying to give back too. So you're trying to patronize locations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just to
Same here,
make
yeah.
sure that the economy's flowing, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
anything like that, anything to do with outdoors. I love movies. My wife and I are movie
What's your
fanatics.
favorite movie? That was on my list.
Oh,
But
I got a lot of. Les Mis is one of my favorites. The movie
wow,
with Liam Neeson in it.
never seen
because
that.
of the storyline to it. I love all the Marvel movies.
Yeah. I'm a Godfather guy. I think The Godfather is the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
I love the family piece.
Yeah.
Because it's not, I don't know if you saw The Offer on Netflix, the making of the movie.
No,
And they had challenges with the mafia, saying they weren't going to allow it to be made because it was a mafia movie. And they had to convince people, this isn't a mafia movie.
Right.
It's a movie about family.
Yep.
Which
Yeah.
it really
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
If you look at it, it's a movie about family. And it happens to be that was their
With
business,
organized
but-
crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How loyalty means something.
Yeah.
That's The Godfather. What's
I
your
think
favorite movie?
I like The Breakfast Club.
Oh,
That's a great
old-
movie, too.
old
Great movie, yeah.
I
I was
love
thinking
that.
of Kate and Leopold. I don't know if you guys ever seen
No,
that.
oh my gosh, stuff I don't know.
With what's his name? Who played the Wolverine? There, what's that actor's name?
Yes.
He's about to be in the Deadpool movie, right?
Is he? I don't know.
Is he?
It was Meg. The movie I'm talking about had Meg Ryan, and it's an older one
Yeah.
Oh my
with
God, what's his name?
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh
Yes,
Jackman, that's
yes.
his name.
Yeah, and he
yes.
travels in time. I love any movie. I mean, I'm not pigeonholing myself to. I like all genres.
Is there a TV show? What's the best TV show ever?
Oh my gosh, I love Seinfeld.
Yeah,
I
it's a good
love
one, yes.
comedies. Big. My girls and I love to sit around and watch comedians.
Yeah.
Comedy is really big. Anything that makes me laugh I love that. Any sitcom like that.
The Office.
No, I didn't get
No,
into
get
that.
that.
If
I
it starts
did.
to get a little raunchy, I kind of
Yeah,
pull away
yeah.
from stuff.
Hard to watch anything today. Then.
Yeah. I gotta
ask
ask you
one
my
more
last
question. Okay.
question. This is my question. That
Is
I
it
ask
like
every-
Hot Wings? That last question. You ever watch that show?
Yes,
Oh,
that's good.
no, I
That's good,
haven't.
yes.
But okay, so if people were to remember one thing,
yeah.
the takeaway, one thing about you from this, what would it be? What do you want them to? What do you want to be?
I
known
would
for?
hope that my heart came out, that I'm a person of community. You know, that I'm driven by compassion and love, a love for my community, a love for Syracuse, a love for Central New York, but a love for those who are broken and those who feel invisible. I hope that through the things that I might have answered through the questions that you guys proposed to me, that my heart would come out, even though we laughed about stuff and talked
Yeah.
about some
I
other
don't think
things.
that can't be possible. There's no way that people can't see that.
Yeah, well, that's the
Yeah.
one thing. And the one thing is this: when you're out and about in the community and you run into folks that we were talking about, just remember it's someone's family member out there. And if it was your family, would you want someone to help? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So reach out and help someone.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
this was awesome.
John's
Appreciate
got
you
a
guys.
tough act to follow.